Welcome to the Illuminate Your Essence podcast, where we cut through the distractions, programs, and stories that have created chaos in your life and discover the truth, bliss, and joy that exists beyond the external clutter and resides within. Today, gratitude. I truly believe that this topic that I'm going to share with you today is one of my all-time favorite words, my favorite feeling, because it's truly just love in action. And it's a connection to the truth, a connection to our truth, a connection to ourselves, and to see what truly is and not the things we make up in our minds. I want you to know my personal development really started with gratitude. And some of you that have been following along with me the last decade will have heard this story. But even if you've heard this story, I just love this story because I feel like it really represents the power of gratitude. Where tomorrow is Thanksgiving and we are in this active part of love where we're sharing our heart with those that we love the most. I think it's an appropriate topic today. What do you guys think? Now, we also know that holidays are a time of a lot of triggering, highly emotionally charged moments. So being in a space of gratitude and opening our heart before we get into a room with our loved ones is going to create magic. Rather than worrying about what we look like, how we appear, what the conversation's going to be, how we might be offended, we can go into that room with a heart of gratitude and just know that we are there just simply to love and receive love. And that we just expect that it will flow. We will expect that we will be in a space of receiving and reciprocating love, because that's what it's all about. That's why we get together as families. That's why we have Thanksgiving. That's why we're going into this beautiful place in December where we share love by giving and receiving presents. Sometimes we get so hung up on the expectations and the way that needs to look and making sure that people see that we are trying our very best to make this a beautiful holiday season. And we get hung up, on those expectations. And that's where the stress comes from. And the fact that many years we didn't realize those expectations. And so there's a lot of old stories and beliefs and baggage from the years of yesterday where we just felt like we didn't meet those expectations. Either we didn't receive what we felt we in our heart wanted to receive, or we weren't able to give what we wanted to give. So let's just take that yucky energy off the table and let's just talk about a heart full of gratitude and what that might do for you. So I'm going to start off with my own personal story and the experience that actually started with gratitude. So over a decade ago, really about 12, 13 years ago, I found myself in a place where my family was in a deep crisis. I discovered my oldest son was addicted to heroin, cocaine, and he had been smoking marijuana since he was 14. Now, you need to understand that my husband was in law enforcement. We had a drug dog that he was a canine officer. Literally, that drug dog was not that far away from his basement window. And we wondered why he was always such a neurotic dog. Well, guess what? There were drugs not that far away from him, and we just didn't know. So we found this out around that time. My next child, which was my daughter, found out she was pregnant with a special needs child, and she was encouraged to abort the baby that they believed, the experts believed, would be born very completely deformed. And then I had a third child that was being threatened to be kicked out of school because of behavioral issues. And I looked down at my beautiful 4-year-old, my fourth child, and I looked in his eyes and I wondered how I was going to screw him up too. Because there was a common denominator in all of these children's life, and that was one mother. And of course, there was one father too, and he wasn't getting off the hook. So there was a lot of strain, a lot of resentment, a lot of judgment on how he was showing up as a father as well. So there was this incredibly painful story I had created, and I just didn't feel like I was doing life right. I identified my role as a mother as who I was at the core of my being. I was a mother. It wasn't just a role I had. It was who I was. So that's a really tricky place to be in, because when you identify with one of your roles and you are relying on other people to create a good story in that role, you're setting yourself up for some pretty harsh reality and hard lessons to learn, because you don't get to control another human. They get to have their own experience. And as individuals, we are meant to stay in our own lane and not go into the other lane, even if they are our children. So oftentimes we cross that lane and we want to control, we want to coerce, we want to beg, plead, and borrow that they do things the way that we believe is the right way. And we create this right and wrong way. I felt completely at loss. And all I can remember over and over in my head was, no other success can compensate for failure in the home. This was a quote that I had heard many, many times in my life. And it just kept looping over and over in my mind. And it was evident to me that I was indeed a failure. And I was in a deep depression and I couldn't see the light. I felt hopeless. I felt defeated. I felt broken. And I had convinced myself that my children would be better off being raised by another person. I really wanted to check out. I didn't want to be in this world anymore. And thankfully, I had the impression to get on my knees and plead with my Creator to help ease my heart. I remember asking for forgiveness and a way out of this terrible situation. I just pled from my heart. And in that moment, while I was on my knees, all I can remember is I heard one word. One word. That's all I heard. And that word was gratitude. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I heard that word, I was actually kind of pissed, because I had just shared my burdens of my life with my Creator, and I wanted comfort. I wanted peace. I wanted solace. I wanted to know that I could get out of this mess that I had created. And I honestly wanted just validation for what I was feeling, validation for the fact that I was in a heap of a mess, and that He saw that, yep, you're there. And I am going to circle you with love, and I am going to allow you to sit in your shit. And that's not what happened. I heard the word gratitude. But the beauty of this is I did hear it. And so I thought, well, maybe I am of value. If my Creator is extending a word to me, maybe perhaps I can just look at that, just be aware that it came into my awareness. So I started to look at things a little differently. I started to slowly open my eyes and see the beauty around me. I started to notice the beautiful mountains outside of my windows. And I would say, thank you. Thank you for the mountains, God. Thank you for these eyes that can see those mountains. I started to notice the way my 4-year-old would say, Mom, and he would always sigh. It was so cute. Mom, I wub you. And he said it at least a dozen times per day. And I started to notice the laughter on a school playground. And when I heard a song, I noticed how I felt that sound throughout my whole body. Thank you, God, for my ears so I can hear the love from my sweet boy and from the children on the playground. Each day I would see more, feel more, experience more connection to my truth, because I felt gratitude for what is and not the made-up stories of my past. Gratitude offers a pathway back from the disconnect we feel in our lives and separation from ourselves and others. When we are in gratitude, we are indeed practicing love in action. It is an opportunity to live in the present moment and remember that we have everything we need and everything is at peace and in harmony as it should be. And we start with what we perceive as good, because it is easiest to do that. And we label everything good and bad and black and white. Most of us do, that is. When we are in a very dark place, it is important to notice everything that we can start to remember what is instead of continually dwelling on what isn't. So we start with that. We start with just what we can notice around us that we perceive as good. And we start with noticing what is beautiful, what the blessings that are in our life and in our heart. And we start to raise that frequency. We start to raise that vibration. So we are in love instead of fear. We are noticing what is and what isn't is starting to fade in the back. So we start practicing that until we get really good at it. And then we can start to move to the various levels of gratitude, and we can start to shift into gratitude 2.0, which is really what today's episode is all about. This is where we start to see that everything that occurs in our lives is purposeful, good, and we can lean into love instead of fear in every situation, that there isn't anything out there that isn't in our highest and best. And I started to notice the shouldn'ts in my life, okay? The things that shouldn't have happened, the things that I wish hadn't have happened, but it was my experience. And so I started to be aware and curious. And since many of you have heard my story of sexual trauma, let's start with that. Let's start with this as an example of where I can lead you into understanding what gratitude 2.0 can actually get to and exist. In my case, I would say to myself, I shouldn't have been raped. Okay. Now that makes sense, right? No one had the right to take advantage of a 15 and then a 17-year-old girl and use her body for their own power and pleasure. I shouldn't have been spiritually and emotionally hijacked, right? I shouldn't have. And yet, when I say the words, I shouldn't have been raped, I feel constriction, resistance to life, and I stay stuck in an energy of fighting against life in general. Because the fact of the matter is my body was reacting in constriction because the fact of it is I did get raped. I did get raped, and I did get group raped. I did. And after I say these words, I then move into asking, is this true? Is it true that I shouldn't been raped? And at first I usually say, well, heck yes. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I shouldn't have been raped. Okay, but is it true that they didn't rape me? No, it's not true. I didn't get raped. I did indeed get raped. That happened. It happened to me. My body starts to relax when I go into truth. I did get raped. So I look at that. I'm aware I did get raped. I got raped more than once. So I relax into the knowledge that no amount of fighting and resisting will change it. It happened. And then I start to open up to understanding, acceptance, and love that can be created in that moment. My favorite thing to do is to place my hand over my heart and I say, can I love myself through this? It happened. It happened. Can I love myself through this? The shouldn't turns in it did. It did. And so I lean into love. It happened. Can I love myself through this? Can I move towards radical acceptance and compassion and forgiveness for a girl that was hurting after her parents' divorce? Girl that didn't have any skills for navigating the pain of what was occurring. And so she turned to numbing, avoiding, escaping. And so she drank a lot. And it opened her up for a lot of vulnerability and potentially the victimization that happened. Can I love myself through this? The kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to have radical acceptance for everything that happens in our lives. Yeah, I can indeed love myself through this because I can step out of the judgment of whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing. It simply was an occurrence in my life, one that allowed me to have the opportunity to practice more love than I had previously, one that allowed me to become empathetic with others, and one that connected me to so many women and wonderful people that are trying to make a difference. Should I have gotten raped? Yes, because I was. And through the action of love, I can move into gratitude for myself and learn to see beyond the circumstances and into the learning, growth, and expansion that it provided me. Do you see how gratitude has the power when we teamed up with forgiveness to set ourselves free? I freed myself from the emotional baggage of yesterday and the fact that I continued the victimization by staying stuck in my story of it shouldn't have happened. The moment I leaned into it did happen, I was able to expand my awareness to what that experience taught me. If I went back 40 years ago, would I change the circumstances? I don't know, because I learned and I grew and I expanded. As a give that person a right to have done that to me? No, I'm not saying that it was okay for them to victimize me, but I am saying it did happen. And that's all I have. All I have is that it did happen. So now I can lean into gratitude for the expansion and awareness and love that I get to show up for myself in. And in that love, I free myself from the emotional baggage of yesterday. I free myself from the judgment that I placed on myself. And I freed myself of the shame and the blame and the guilt. So possible that you could start with loving what is that you perceive as good in your life and start there, because that's a lot easier. And then start to slowly shift into a place of loving what is no matter what happens. Could that be a place where we can head towards? This holiday season, I pray that we will all see what is and not what isn't. The pressure to perform and get the season right, to live up to the expectations of the parties, the presents, the gatherings. How about we simply remember how to connect? How to simply have deep gratitude for our circumstances right now. What we are all seeking during the holidays is to show gratitude one another and make everyone feel important. So let's remember what the season is about and focus on that beautiful, loving connection instead of worrying about the performance that the external world tells us is important. I do want to share with you an incredible opportunity this holiday season if it's resonating with your heart space. I personally am curating a small group of 8 to 10 people to be beta testers for a new 12-week mastermind where we will be learning to master our inner world. We're going to focus on 3 different areas. We're going to start with learning the language of our bodies and understanding what they're telling us. We will start using that cue to help us learn this internal GPS that we have instead of constantly shutting it down. And we're going to learn to navigate our intuition like a boss. And we're going to master our emotions by utilizing a patent pending technology that uses a 15-second voice analysis. If you want to know more about that, listen to my podcast about emotional intelligence. We're actually going to use that technology. And then we're going to start slowly peeling the layers of emotional baggage of yesterday, that trauma. We're going to get through those shouldn'ts that occurred in our life. We will get through some of those layers and slough off and expose that inner essence of what has always been. And then the last thing that we're going to be working on is to perceive the world differently. I'm going to help you put on a new pair of glasses so that gratitude 2.0 is easier and you start to show up and react differently to the challenges and catch your stories before they start to shut you down. And what this is going to do is allow you to step into a creation mode where you create abundance in all areas, where you're not just learning a systematic approach to creating more money, better relationships, better health, but you're becoming that. And so naturally, money is attracted into your life. Naturally, relationships that are honoring, respectful, and free of drama are being magnetized into your life. That those things, that health, that you are curating an experience where you can raise your vibration. So health and natural health, good vibration is naturally just a part of who you are. Know that this might sound pie in the sky, but it's true. I'm living proof that it's true. And I have the ability to extend the invitation and the learning to you. And it's not the shift that I do for you, it's you. You become your own inner expert and you start to learn that the truth is within and not without. If that calls to you, I invite you to fill out an interest form that will be on the show notes, or you can look on my website under my programs, and this will be the Truth and Dare Mastermind. I'm doing this for the very first time at a third of the cost because I want to help you go through these 3 months and start the holidays even before the new year. Let's start creating before, because whatever you create in December is going to filter over into January. So let's start now. Let's create a different holiday experience for you. Let's create a different way of being in the new year so that we can really expand who you are already within. This isn't something that you're changing into. It's just remembering what has always been there. And then from that point, we are actually going to have a curated, beautiful, luxurious retreat that's a part of this experience, 4 days, 3 nights in Southern Utah, February 2nd through the 5th. It's a part of this experience. And I invite you to be a part of this. If this resonates with your heart, fill out that interest form. Would love to just talk to you for a few minutes and let's discuss what that looks like. What do you want to create? And where are you going? And could this facilitate this in an easier manner? And I love the fact that I'm not hung up on either answer. It might be for you, it might not be for you, and that's okay, but I'd love to visit with you regardless. I hope that you'll practice gratitude in your life. It will completely change your experience here. And Gratitude 2.0 will uplevel that experience. With that being said, I can't wait the dialogue, the deep dive, and the discussion here on Illuminate Your Essence. Have a beautiful holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving, my friends. Thank you for listening. I invite you to continue the dialogue, the discovery, and the deep dive on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also on my website. Feel free to download your free copy of the 5 Steps to Discovering Your Inner Voice and begin your journey of discovering the truth within today.